Film Noir, from the French word for blackness, darkness, the dark side of crime.
Shut up, Mr. Hilliard. Mystery called you. You can't turn this on us. I got my guts good and full of you, Mr. Hilliard. Guys like you, smart-eyed, respectable suckers.
The dark side of passion.
There's one thing we could do that would fix everything for us.
What? Pray for something to happen to Nick?
Something like that.
I like that. I'd like more.
What you're trying to say is you don't want me to love you. Say it. Say it.
All I wanted was for you to come back. That's the truth. I love you, Cody. I love you.
You afraid, baby?
Yes, I'm afraid. But not of Keys. I'm afraid of us.
Get that look off your face! Who gave you the right to dig into me and turn me inside out and decide what I'm like? How do you know how I feel about you, how deep it goes? Maybe it's deeper than I want it to be. Maybe I don't want anybody to own me, you or anybody. Get out! Get out!
Get out of my way, you cheap crook.
Film noir is Hollywood's truly original vision of the shadowy, smoky underworld. These films from the early 40s to the late 50s, which we'll focus on in this show, entertain us with intrigue, conflict, and lust. Visions of beautiful women and the tough guys who fell for them.
What did you do with her? Where is my wife? My wife! Stop the knife!
Most often, these flatfoots were duped by a dame involved in a conspiracy, or she was a one-woman web of treachery operating alone. And boy, could these femme fatales play a hardened fella for fool in love. The crime novels featuring cool and cautious private detectives first became bestsellers back in the 1920s. Stories like Raymond Chandler's The Maltese Falcon became one of the first true noir classics. It was also director John Huston and star Humphrey Bogart's first big hit about private detective Sam Spade.
What have you ever given me beside money? Have you ever given me any of your confidence, any of the truth? Haven't you tried to buy my loyalty with money and nothing else?
What else is there I can buy you with?
Who? I won't play the sap for you.
I haven't lived a good life. I've been bad. Worse than you could know.
We were talking about a lot more money than this.
There are more of us to be taken care of now.
Well, that may be, but I've got the Falcon.
You may have the Falcon, but we certainly have you.
I take another riding from you I'm gonna take. Get up and shoot it out.
Stop it. The police will be here any minute. Now talk.
Oh, how can you accuse me of such a terrible...
This isn't the time for that schoolgirl act. We're both of us sitting under the gallows.
The working title for Maltese was the slightly less intriguing The Gent from Frisco, and it was previously made in 1936 as Satan Met a Lady. Other Chandler classics would follow, but with a new detective named Philip Marlowe. Bogey played Marlowe, too, co-starring with his new beautiful, seductive wife, Lauren Bacall. Their first Chandler film together was The Big Sleep.
Sometimes I wonder what strange fate brought me out of the storm to that house that stood alone in the shadows. As I probed into its mysteries, every clue told me a different story. But each had the same ending: murder. Every instinct warned me to beware that something more dangerous, more deadly than I'd ever known before was in that room. And suddenly,
I like that. I'd like more. That's even better.
The Big Sleep almost took a deep sleep when test screening audiences didn't find much about the film intriguing at all. Warner Brothers reshot several scenes, and when the film was finally released in 1946, almost 2 years after it was shot, audiences still didn't flock to theaters, but a classic was born nonetheless. Before that, however, Bogey made the film on which he first met Bacall, To Have and Have Not, based on Ernest Hemingway's novel.
Strange ships slip through the fog with even stranger cargoes, where every man has a price and every woman a past, where all barriers are down and the only law is the law of the Caribbean.
Go on, pull your guns. Go ahead. Go ahead, get him out. Don't been pushing me around long enough.
I'm hard to get, Steve. All you have to do is ask me.
You know what you're getting into. It's gonna be rough. You shouldn't have come up here. It's too much of a chance. I told you downstairs I can't take
I
you.
didn't come up for that. I'm sorry for the way I've acted.
Oh, you're not sorry at all. You're just sorry because you made a fool out of yourself. That broke as easy as you will. You're both gonna take a beating till someone uses that phone. That means one of you's gonna take a beating for nothing, and I don't care which one it is. What'd you do that for?
Been wondering whether I'd like it.
What's the decision?
I don't know yet. It's even better when you help.
Stand by that wheel. Now, wait a minute. Give me that gun.
You can't fight them guys, Harry.
After the film finished, Bogey and Bacall decided to have each other and tied the knot, despite their 2-decade age difference. Bogart was the king of film noir, starring in over a dozen titles of the genre. Another king of film noir was Robert Mitchum. The romantic triangle of Mitchum, Jane Greer, and Kirk Douglas set a standard in 1947's Out of the Past, made at RKO, which Greer remembers fondly.
You know, you're a curious man.
You're gonna make every guy you meet a little bit curious.
The very first scene we did was a love scene in Out of the Past. And I remember when I gazed up at him under the lights, we were rehearsing the scene, and there was a brown line around his lips, and I thought, that's clever of the makeup man. And I said to him, what does the makeup man put around their lips there? He said, what are you talking about? I said, the rim, the brown rim around your lips. He said, oh, that's Machoan tobacco. But during my time, it was such a small studio and very family-like. And it was a wonderful comfort to be under contract, to have them nurture you.
Mitchum also starred in another noir classic that year from RKO. The film was Crossfire, and it received 5 Academy Award nominations, including 1 for Best Picture. It took noir one step further as it dealt with the big political issue of the day, anti-Semitism. 1947 also saw the introduction of another great star of film noir, Richard Widmark, in his Oscar-nominated performance in this tale of the mob and an informant, Kiss of Death. He starred as Udo, the henchman who likes to push old women in wheelchairs downstairs for fun. One of the basic plots which defines a film noir story is a premise involving a tough guy who gets taken in by a seductress, a femme fatale. Whether seduced into a murder plot or seducing a man into killing for them, some of these very persuasive women were pretty tough themselves. The king creator of women in noir was author James M. Cain. 3 of the greatest noir classics of all time were based on his novels and made into movies all within a year. And Cain's women meant business. First, there was Barbara Stanwyck in his Double Indemnity, directed by Billy Wilder, which received 5 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Barbara set out to not only seduce an eager Fred McMurray, but once she had him where she wanted him, she talked him into murdering her bothersome husband.
I killed Dietrichson. Me, Walter Neff, insurance agent, 35 years old, unmarried, no visible scars. Until a while ago, that is. Yeah, I killed him. I killed him for money and for a woman. It all began last May. I was thinking about that dame upstairs and the way she had looked at me. And I wanted to see her again, close, without that silly staircase between us. How could I have known that murder can sometimes smell like honeysuckle?
I can't stand it anymore. What if they do hang me?
They're not going to hang you, baby.
It's better than going on this way.
They're not going to hang you. Because you're going to do it and I'm going to help you.
Yes, from the moment they met, it was murder. But always behind them, with his devilish hunches and his brilliant brain, was Keyes.
The murder's never perfect. Always comes apart sooner or later. And where two people are concerned, it's usually sooner.
Could they get away from him and his relentless pursuit? And could they get away with murder?
You don't know Keyes. Once he gets his teeth into something, he never lets go. He'll investigate you. He'll have you shadowed. He'll watch you every minute from now on. You afraid, baby?
Yes, I'm afraid. But not of Keyes. I'm afraid of us.
I'd like to move in on her right now, tonight. If it wasn't for Norton and his striped pants ideas about company policy, I'd have the cops after her so quick it'd make a head spin. Now, we know the Dietrichson dame is in it, and somebody else.
Only you haven't got a single thing to go on, Keyes.
He'll show. He's got to show. Sometime, somewhere, they've got to meet.
James M. Cain's next potboiler was a similar story of a seductress played by the original Turner, Lana Turner, who wore the deceptive color of white in every scene, and a willing man played by John Garfield. But in this case, the husband wasn't so easy to get rid of.
There's one thing we could do that would fix everything for us.
What? Pray for something to happen to Nick?
Something like that.
Cora.
Well, you suggested it yourself once, didn't you?
I was only joking.
Were you?
Yes, I was.
Or had you started to think about it a little?
Maybe I said it, but I didn't really mean it.
Well, I say it again now, and I do mean it. Frank, listen to me. I'm not what you think I am. I've made a big mistake in my life, and I've got to be this way just once to fix it.
They hang you for a thing like that.
Oh, but not if you do it right. And you're smart, Frank. You'll think of a way. Plenty of men have.
He never did any harm to me.
But, darling, can't you see how happy you and I would be together here without him?
I've been waiting a long time for that kiss.
When we get home, Frank, then there'll be kisses. The kisses with dreams in them. Kisses that come from life, not death.
I hope I can wait.
Darling. Frank! Look out!
36 years later, Jack Nicholson and a young star named Jessica Lange gave new meaning to Get It While It's Hot at the old Twin Oaks Diner. The third Cain novel to come to the screen in the span of the year was the very different tale of a woman working her way up the ladder of success, only to find her vicious daughter sleeping with her husband, the story of Mildred Pierce.
Mildred, a name gasped in the night. The one last word of a dying man. But one word that tells 1,000 stories of a woman who left her mark on every man she met.
You make me feel, oh, I don't know, warm.
And wanted.
How long has this been going on?
Monty's going to divorce you and marry me. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Beautiful Fox leading lady Jean Tierney starred the year before in 1944's classic Laura. Laura is one of the most popular film noir titles ever and has one of the most clever mystery plots in history, not to mention the haunting song and score by David Raskin and Johnny Mercer. Don't let anyone tell you the ending of this tale of a missing, beautiful young woman named Laura, who was the obsession of everyone around her.
You're Laura Hunt, aren't you?
Yes.
I'm Shelby Carpenter. Want to dance?
I'm not alone.
Oh, you poor girl. I bet he still does the polka.
Yes, Betsy Ross taught it to me. It was as natural for Laura to be picked out from among thousands of alluring girls as it was for her to be surrounded by luxury, mystery, and scheming men. Every woman will feel that when it comes to men, Laura gets by with murder. Every man will feel that when it comes to murder, it couldn't involve a more enticing girl.
Don't worry. I told you I'd bring in the killer today. Yeah, I was just going to make the arrest when you called. No, I can't tell you now. I'm not alone. You'll see when I come in.
Dangerous women were the rage of the 40s, and there were dozens of films, particularly the independent B-movies, which used them to their sexiest, baddest advantage. In the underground classic thriller Detour, a Joe may or may not have killed a man who gave him a ride, but when he steals the dead man's car, he picks up the wrong woman who knows too much about what really happened. Or does she?
I'm really doing you a favor. I help you out of a jam by keeping my mouth shut. I show you how to make some soft money. And what thanks do I get?
Thanks.
Sure. Or would you rather call the cops and tell them you killed the man and stole his money?
I didn't kill anybody.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. You know I didn't.
All right, then. Suppose I call the cops. If you're innocent, what do you got to be scared of?
Okay. Call them, you mud. Go ahead and call them. See a fight here. At least they'll give me a square deal.
You want me to call them?
You heard me. But I'm warning you. If I'm pinched, I'll swear you were in on it. I'll say that you helped me. If I pry, I'll get even with you.
You wouldn't dare. You're chicken.
Yeah? Then try it and see. Call them. Yeah.
Okay, I will.
If you don't open the door, I'm going to kick it down, Vera. Vera, don't call the cops. Listen to me. I'll do anything you say. Vera, let me in.
In 1947, Bogey made his third film with Bacall, a classic noir tale in a thriller style, which was ahead of its time. Bogey's a convict who escapes from San Quentin and is rescued by a sympathetic woman played by Bacall, who decides to give him shelter while he heals from cosmetic surgery in order to change his identity.
You won't tell me because you think I'll come there. You think I'd follow you.
You'd be insane to follow me.
Was I insane to pick you up on the road? Was I crazy to let you stay here? I thought I had a pretty good life here, but your going away doesn't make it seem good anymore.
No, I've got the Indian sign on me. It seems I can't win.
I've sort of joined your team. Don't look forward to being without you.
When I leave here, you're off my team. Lucky to be.
You're a guy with plenty of trouble.
I don't have a trouble in the world.
Don't tell me, brother. I know. Your trouble is women.
I've cried myself to sleep at night because of you. She's got you now. She wants you very badly, doesn't she? She's willing to run away with you and keep on running and ruin everything for herself. Well, she doesn't have you now, and she'll never have you.
Dark Passage was followed by a trip with Bogey and Bacall and old co-star Edward G. Robinson to a place called Key Largo.
My name is Frank McLeod. I'm about 12 miles off Boot Key Harbor on my way in.
Over. Hold your course. You're headed straight for Key Largo, a lonely island off the coast of Florida. Sultry, heat-ridden, cloaked in the strange menace of the sea. But stranger still is the destiny that brings these people to this remote outpost, to be held at bay with a price on their lives, by a man with a price on his head.
Nothing to stop me from wiping you all out.
What good'll that do, boss? Forget it. Her kind's a dime a dozen.
I say smack her and let it go at that.
Smacking her isn't enough for such an insult. He'd have to kill her. Then he'd have to kill the rest of us because we witnessed it. But to kill us all or nothing.
We rid ourselves of your kind once and for all. You ain't coming back.
Who's gonna stop me, old man?
Filth. You filth.
I won't let you go without me. You've got to take me. You've got to.
You've got to.
And wildcat. Smell blood, huh? Got your appetite up. You can make your hopes come true. But you gotta die for it. See where I'm aiming? Right at your belly. Go ahead, shoot. Get away, sister.
Get away, Nora.
Another tale of hostages and their tormentors was Bogart's 1955's Desperate Hours, only this time, Bogey wasn't one of the good guys.
Shut up, Mr. Hilliard. Mystery called you. You can't turn this on us. I got my guts good and full of you, Mr. Hilliard. Guys like you, smart-eyed, respectable suckers.
You're afraid, aren't you?
Yes, son. I'm afraid, and I'm not ashamed of it. Sometimes it's better to be afraid. Bard, you can't put off a showdown.
Nobody wants a showdown any more than I do. But we can't get the poor Slav's family massacred.
Glenn, it can't go on. First the old man on the truck, then the school teacher. Now the guy out here. Somebody's gonna get wise.
Oh, darling, we're not saved if anything happens to you. I will let you go.
Ellie, that's the way it is, that's all. You do as I say. Our job is to help you and get away from here. Take your men, your guns, your lights, and get away. There's been a murder in my county. The papers are beginning to scream.
Now, what do I care? My family's in that house over there.
A seemingly less dangerous woman was the classic character of Norma Desmond, who lived on Sunset Boulevard. This 1950 classic was written and directed by the genius Billy Wilder. Norma Desmond was a faded silent movie star, played by real-life faded silent movie star Gloria Swanson.
Hedda Harper speaking. I'm talking from the bedroom of Norma Desmond. Don't bother with a rewrite, man. Take this direct. Ready? As day breaks over the murder house.
Swanson received her only Oscar nomination since the silent era, and the film itself received a total of 12 nods, including Best Picture and Best Actor for William Holden. He played the unwitting screenwriter pulled into Norma's web of fantasy, madness, and murder.
What you're trying to say is you don't want me to love you. Say it. Say it.
"1952's The Bad and the Beautiful did for Hollywood what Citizen Kane did for the newspaper industry, exposing the evil doings of the rich and powerful.
What goes on in the private lives of the famous, the notorious? You will share the laughter and the tears of talented people who stop at nothing to attain success until success stops them. Of romantic people who fight for love until love whips them.
Thought you said you were going to get rid of her quick.
Shut up and get back upstairs.
If you are a gentleman, there is no justification for boorishness.
He asked me how my work was going. What was I supposed to say? Great? Incidentally, who was that overgrown bullfighter you danced with all night?
Don't talk like that about Georgia. Or Jonathan. He's a great man.
There are no great men, Buster. There's only men. You're the first person I ever knew who began by hating him and ended up liking him. Do you always do everything backwards?
Do you still love him?
Get that look off your face! Who gave you the right to dig into me and turn me inside out and decide what I'm like? How do you know how I feel about you, how deep it goes? Maybe it's deeper than I want it to be. Maybe I don't want anybody to own me, you or anybody. Get out! Get out!
Never has anyone dared to put on the screen a story told with such boldness, such frankness.
Though it wasn't even nominated for Best Picture, it went on to win more Oscars than any other film that year, 5, including one for supporting actress Gloria Graham. Also in 1952, MGM brought the world a film which not only became a classic of film noir, but revived and reinvented the heist picture. The Asphalt Jungle was the film. The director was John Huston, and the stars included veteran gangster film actor Sam Jaffe, Sterling Hayden, and Louis Calhern, and a newcomer in a bit part, Marilyn Monroe.
Haven't you bothered me enough, you big banana head? Just try breaking my door, and Mr. Emmerich will throw you out of the house.
Like the foreign films Rafifi and The Big Deal on Madonna Street, which would follow it, The Asphalt Jungle told the story of a group of thieves battling amongst themselves while trying to pull off the big one, in this case a jewel heist.
Only once in a decade does the screen come up with such absorbing characters. Sterling Hayden as Dix Handley, a hooligan with a twisted dream. Jean Hagen as Doll, the dime-a-dance dame who wanted to share that shabby dream.
Let me go with you. Please, Dix, please.
You're crazy I'm on the lam. I'm wanted bad, packing heat. If there's any trouble, what good would you be?
I could drive.
I'm wanted on a killing rap. You know what that means.
I don't care. I just want to be with you.
Louis Calhern as Emmerich, the big-time mouthpiece with crime on his mind.
Oh, I suppose a fellow should stick to his own trade, but I know some pretty big men around here that might not be averse to a deal like this if they're properly approached.
Several of the best mob stories came along at the peak of noir in the late 1940s. Ernest Hemingway provided yet another novel which became a noir. In The Killers, a simple guy played by newcomer Burt Lancaster, simply called the Swede, and he's done the mob wrong. The story flashes back to tell how it all came to a death sentence for him.
You've been asking for it lately. Hey! Any objections? Yeah.
You touch me and you won't live till morning.
You're not meeting them tomorrow.
Aren't I sweet?
Most of them turned out to be unhealthy. The farmer died from natural causes. The Swede and Blinky Franklin were both killed.
You know who else was in the gang?
You were.
Reach for that and I'll kick your brains out.
The descent of man into evil, into a world where he may have to do whatever it takes to live, is indicative of the attitudes of men during World War II, where survival at all costs was simply the way of life. But it also represented the attitude in the post-war years that the American dream was a right, and any obstacle to obtaining that kind of life should be overcome by whatever means necessary. 1949 marked the release of the independent classic DOA, Dead on Arrival, where a man was literally running for his life, not only to find out who poisoned him, but to find an antidote before he dies. It was more or less a metaphor for a man running from his own mysterious, potentially destructive subconscious.
Where's the doctor?
You just come in.
Come on, tell me,
You have to go through the big before you come here.
What's the trouble here? What's the matter with you?
Doctor, I want you to examine me for luminous poisoning.
Come right in here.
Yeah, you've got it all right. Your system has already absorbed it. Are you sure, Doctor? Are you absolutely certain? Couldn't there be some mistake?
There it is. Toxin is actually luminous in the dark. Now, there's no doubt about it, Bigelow. Give it to me straight, Doctor. Well, a number of things are involved. The systemic condition of the individual, the amount consumed, exertion. Yes. You won't feel too badly for a while. Then it will happen suddenly. A day, 2 days, a week at the most.
A day. 2 days.
There's nothing that can be done now. If it had been caught in time, your stomach could have been washed out. But you've had it in you for some time now. For at least 12 hours, haven't you, Bigelow?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Don't you know how you got it?
No.
This is no accident. Somebody knew how to handle that stuff. That wax is tasteless and odorless. And the amount of alcohol in your body, you must have got it in liquor.
I was drinking last night.
Arrange for your admission to the hospital immediately. Of course, I'll have to notify the police. This is a case for homicide.
Homicide?
I don't think you fully understand, Bigelow. You've been murdered. Get me police headquarters, please. Homicide Bureau.
Sit down. Where was this murder committed?
San Francisco, last night.
Who was murdered?
I was.
That same year launched the comeback of Jimmy Cagney, one of the biggest stars of the precursor to noir, the gangster era of the 30s. In White Heat, director Raoul Walsh updated the gangster format with the cynicism and style of noir. The tale of a train robber and his gang, including his tough-as-nails mother, Cagney's character Cody is an out-of-control rebel.
You won't get away with it, Cody.
Cody, huh? You got a good memory for names. Too good.
When he suspects his gun mall girlfriend Verna may have murdered his mama, things start to really heat up. Veteran star of the 40s and 50s, Virginia Mayo played Verna in a part which took a 180-degree turn from the relatively good girl part she was famous for.
Now tell me you're glad to see me. Only say it slowly.
All I wanted was for you to come back. That's the truth. I love you, Cody. I love you.
The script was fabulous. And with Raoul Walsh directing, it was a big, big hit. Everybody recognized it as a classic. And Jimmy was just marvelous in it. And he should have gotten another Oscar for doing it. But in Hollywood of that day and age, they did not think a gangster picture was worthy of an Oscar. I'm sure they'd give it to him today if they were issuing the picture. But it was fabulous, and Raoul Walsh made it so gutsy. And Jimmy's performance was just magnificent. And the picture was a smash hit.
I look good in a mink coat, honey.
Mm-hmm. You look good in a shower curtain.
It was Big Ed. He told me to do it. You wouldn't kill me in cold blood, would you?
Now let you warm up a little.
Let him have it.
Oh, no. And lose our ace in the hole, he's going to walk us out of here. Ain't you, Copper?
Ed.
Still getting nerves?
Director Samuel Fuller would play a large part in keeping the noir alive through the 50s and 60s, though few of his films would be considered hits by today's standards. Nonetheless, they've all gained a cult following, such as his 1960 look at the mob, Underworld, USA. The idea of a detective getting in way over his head is a staple of the genre, going back to the earliest days. In 1947's The Lady in the Lake, the idea of confusion was literally translated to the screen. This entire film was shot from Detective Philip Marlowe's point of view, the camera revealing only his face a few times in mirrors.
My name is Marlowe, Philip Marlowe. Occupation, private detective. You know, somebody says, follow that guy. So I follow him. Somebody says, find that female. So I find her. But some cases, like this one, kind of creep up on you on their hands and knees. And the first thing you know, you're in it up to your neck. Right now, you're reading in your newspapers and hearing over your radios about a murder. They call it The Case of the Lady in the Lake. It's a good title. It fits. What you've read and what you've heard is one thing. The real thing is something else. There's only one guy who knows that. I know it. This Lady in the Lake business started just 3 days before Christmas.
Who invited you?
I did.
Now, wait a minute, Mr. Marlowe.
Just when I was beginning to like you.
Well, you want the facts, don't you?
When it concerns a woman, does anybody ever really want the facts?
Vain female, aren't you?
Please don't be so difficult to get along with. I need help.
What's going on here?
He got cute.
Striking an officer, resisting arrest, and murder, all on Christmas Eve. Let's wrap you up real pretty, shall we? And take you right down to headquarters. Give me your hands.
One of Hollywood's most daring and bizarre experiments by actor-director Robert Montgomery. The film wound up a notorious flop. More successful was Alan Ladd's foray into detective stories, which made him a star. Dashiell Hammett's The Glass Key, a tale of political corruption and murder. Ladd and his voluptuous co-star with the peekaboo hairdo, Veronica Lake, were a couple made for each other.
The Glass Key, story of big-town politics and underworld intrigue, of murder cold-bloodedly plotted to swing an election, and a battle to the death between Alan Ladd and William Bendix, that terrific guy you saw as Maxie Randall in Wake Island.
Get out of my way, you cheap crook.
That same year, in 1942, Ladd and Lake made one of the first action thrillers, This Gun for Hire, the story of a hitman on the run. It helped establish many of the conventions of the genre, the run-and-jump chase scene, shooting on actual seedy locations, and the idea that the lead character may not be such a hero after all.
Watch it, copper.
It's Raven. Do what he says.
You stay where you are.
There's a dragnet out for you, Raven. It won't do any good to hurt her, so use your head.
Better stay put.
Who trusts anybody?
You couldn't very well complain to the police, could you?
I'm my own police.
What would you do?
First, I'd find out who you're stooging for. And I'd give him what I gave Baker.
Don't I? I can't stand violence.
Then I'd whittle off a little of that blubber.
You still want that stuff from Gates?
Of course I do.
Help me out of here and I'll get it for you. What was that hot air last night? That flag wave. Okay, I'll shoot it out with him and I hope your copper gets the first slug.
In 1955's Kiss Me Deadly, what seems to be a routine detective story turns out to be about far more. A girl, played by the young Cloris Leachman, is almost saved from the mob by Detective Mike Hammer, author Mickey Spillane's entry into the detective genre. But director Robert Aldrich's take on this story about a Hollywood connection to Cold War nuclear thievery is much more than a simple mystery.
Who are you?
My name is Mike Hammer, if it matters.
What do you want?
He was out to get men who tortured women and killed with the ferocity of wild beasts. This was their jungle.
Drop the knife!
They came last night, right after you left. I heard them. I hid in the basement.
Only a woman could help him solve the murderous riddle of Kiss Me Deadly.
She's dead. But I'm not dead. Hey, remember me?
This woman's lips, cold as steel, lethal as a gun, gave him the terrifying clue he sought. On this woman's lips, warm with longing, lay the shocking secret of Kiss Me Deadly.
The noir detective story occasionally delved into not only thematic possibilities, but social issues as well. In 1945, Best Picture winner The Lost Weekend addressed the dark and noirish world of alcoholism.
This is a relentless, terrifying tale of 5 lost days and nights, torn from a man's life, bearing his heart and soul.
You just happen to walk in on this. Now, if you know what's good for you, you'll turn around and walk out again, and walk fast, and don't turn back.
Down strange, forbidden byways, he wandered in search of his soul. One woman loved him too much to let him lose it. Another wanted him enough to take him without it.
You do like me a little, don't you, honey?
Boy, Natch, Gloria, Natch.
Then, among other masters of noir like directors Billy Wilder, Nicholas Ray, Samuel Fuller, Fritz Lang, and Robert Aldrich, comes two masters among masters, Englishman Alfred Hitchcock and American Orson Welles. Orson's noir effort, Touch of Evil, is certainly not on the level of his masterpiece Citizen Kane, but despite its Byzantine plot about a conspiracy in a Mexican border town, the visuals are nonetheless overwhelming.
This was her wedding night. Where was the man she had married? Who were these hoodlums?
Hold her legs.
Only the offbeat, original, creative powers of Orson Welles could bring you so suspenseful, so gripping, so different a drama of love threatened by vengeance.
Mike may be spoiling some of your fun.
Mike?
My husband, yeah. And if you're trying to scare me into calling him off, let me tell you something, Mr. Grandy. I may be scared, but he won't be.
Of a struggle between titans.
You framed that boy.
Framed him! Of a manhunt like nothing you've ever experienced.
You're caught now. I'm a husband. What did you do with her? Where is my wife? My wife!
Though most books don't consider Hitchcock to have worked much in the world of noir, some of his and the crime suspense genre's greatest titles belong to him. Notorious is a dark and brooding spy thriller with a romantic and yet neo-realist touch. Style was everything in this tale of a man in love with a scientist's daughter, a scientist who's being held captive by Nazi collaborators.
I'm sorry to intrude on this tender scene.
I knew her before you did, loved her before you did. I wasn't as lucky as you.
I'll take care of her myself.
No, not that way.
I stood looking at her when she was asleep. I could have...
Quiet, Alex. You are almost as impetuous as before your wedding. You barred me from that episode. Let me arrange this one.
Alicia, what's wrong with you?
I'm so glad you came.
I had to. I couldn't stand any more waiting and worrying about you. There wasn't a hangover you had that day. You were sick then.
Yes, I'm sick.
What is it?
Oh, death.
What is it, dear? What's wrong with you?
They're poisoning me.
Rear Window took the prototypical story of an ordinary man caught up in extraordinary and criminal circumstances to new heights, even if they were only a few stories up. Rear Window had wheelchair-bound Jimmy Stewart as an everyman against evil, a detective solving a murder, and a man in love with one of the most beautiful blondes ever, Grace Kelly, all in one movie.
This is the apartment of a man named Jeffries, a news photographer whose beat used to be the world. Right now, his world has shrunk down to the size of this window. He's been watching the people across the way. Nobody seems to pull their blinds during a hot spell like this. He knows a lot about them by now. Too much, perhaps. For instance, down there on the second floor, the woman pacing about. He calls her Miss Lonely Hearts, so lonely that even death seems like a friend. These are the newlyweds, on a honeymoon no one will ever forget. He calls her Miss Hearing Aid, an artist of a very odd and strange art. The songwriter who plays the same melody over and over again. A genius or insane? This is the traveling salesman and his invalid wife. Out of their arguments and nagging comes a weird kind of love. Miss Torso, the body beautiful. That is, viewed from a safe distance.
Those are just a few of my neighbors. First, I watched them just to kill time, but then I couldn't take my eyes off them, just as you won't be able to.
And you won't be able to take your eyes off the glowing beauty of Grace Kelly, who shares the heart and curiosity of James Stewart in this story of a romance shadowed by the terror of a horrifying secret.
But perhaps the masterpiece of all detective stories and all of film noir, despite its vivid colors and defiance of noir conventions, is Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. The ultimate tale of a detective down on his luck. Jimmy Stewart plays a man who is lured into a trap by a beautiful blonde, played by Kim Novak.
You don't let me go.
Hitch had a wonderful way of not wanting things to add up exactly, so that you couldn't keep score and say, well, if she goes to A and B, you will naturally, well, C will be expected. I mean, he loved to move things around and not always totally justify a scene on purpose to keep the audience alert and to keep them participating. And that was really important for him. Hitch just really wanted you to work as you're watching it just as much and be involved in it. So he'd make things make sense, but at the same time, there were often things that didn't. There were some scenes, he said, it really doesn't matter, really doesn't matter.
A beautiful girl haunted by the desperate, unexplainable urge to destroy herself. A man possessed by the paralyzing vertigo that made him afraid of high places.
Easy now.
I know. It's a cinch. Here, I look up, I look down. I look up, I look...
What was the strange attraction that brought these two together, in spite of the dark forces that tore them apart? The specter from the past that drew her to the ancient headstone in the mission graveyard. The compulsion that drove her relentlessly to the point of no return. The story of a love so powerful it broke down all barriers between past and present, between life and death, between the golden girl in the dark tower and the tawdry redhead that he tried to remake in her image.
If I let you change me, will that do it? If I do what you tell me, will you love me?
Yes.
All right. All right, then I'll do it. Because I don't care any more about me.
Though it was not extremely well received on its initial release in 1958, the consensus is that Vertigo not only elevates the detective story to new and rarely equaled thematic heights, it also has as entertaining and clever a plot as there's ever been. The world of noir experienced a revival in the mid-70s, which exploded in the mid-80s, carrying on well into the 90s. And it's one of the few entertainments which is still also as intelligent as it is dangerous. So remember, be careful of what lurks among the shadows. You never know what may be lying in wait.